Have you been following the news from ABC? That's kind of important to know about right about now. ABC News having to pay some $16 million. That would be $15 million just from ABC itself, along with another $1 million that's got to get paid from George Stephanopolus, because of some of the things he said that were rather libelous. Here we go. This is a story coming to us from all over the media. The headline out of Fox News is George Stephanopolus and ABC apologized to Trump. They're forced to pay $15 million to settle the defamation lawsuit. As part of the agreement, Stephanopolis and the network issued statements of regret for comments that prompted the lawsuit. And then the other important component or part of this is that George is going to have to pay $1 million out of his own pocket to settle the fees of the attorneys. Now, why did this all come about to begin with, you might be wondering? Well, it all has to do with something that George Stephanopolus said that was not only inaccurate, but highly, what you would call in danger of being libel. In fact, the judge found that it was, well, not a judge in this case. I think that ABC News made a decision to actually settle this because they figured they would get hit with libel, and that would be a really unpleasant situation. So here is the particular quote that started it all. George Stephanopolus actually talking with Nancy Mace on his Sunday program.
Still get judged for it today.
I'm asking you a very simple question.
And I answered it. You're shaming me for my political choices.
I'm asking you a question about why you endorse someone who's been found liable for rape.
It was not a criminal court. This was a civil court. It was a civil court. And by the way, she joked about the judgment and what she was going to do with all that money, and I find that offensive.
I'm asking you about the man
But as a rape victim who's been shamed for years now because of her rape, you're trying to shame me again by asking me this political question.
You've repeated that again and again and again.
I think it's offensive. As a woman, I find it offensive. For my political choices, I've endorsed the man that I believe is best for our country. It's not Joe Biden. And you looked at the dueling rallies yesterday in Georgia. Laken Riley's family was with Donald Trump. They weren't with Joe Biden. The same guy yesterday that apologized for calling her killer an illegal, who wasn't illegal. And here you are trying to shame a rape victim. I find it disgusting.
I mean, you keep saying I'm shaming you.
You are. The question, it is.
How is the question asking you about a presidential candidate who's
You're asking a rape victim.
And there's no question about that. And you've courageously talked about that.
Because I've been raped. I think that's disgusting.
No, I'm questioning your political choices because you're supporting someone who's been found liable for rape. Actually, I'm not trying to shame you.
You are. That's exactly what you're doing.
You're not answering the question.
I think it's disgusting.
Well, you're welcome to say that, but you have to answer the question. Why are you supporting someone who's been found liable for rape?
I just answered your question.
What is the answer?
He was not found guilty in a criminal court of law. It was sexual abuse. It wasn't actually rape, by the way. And E. Jean Carroll joked about all the money she's going to get and made a mockery out of this case. And I think that's offensive. There's a reason why women don't come forward. And when you have someone who says that they're raped and they make a mockery out of this civil court judgment, it's offensive to other women. It makes it harder for other women to come forward when another woman has made a mockery of it.
You said women don't come forward because they are afraid. They are afraid because they are defamed by those who
you're trying to shame me this morning.
They are afraid to come forward, as you said, because they are defamed by those who commit the rape. That's what Donald Trump has been found guilty of doing.
He defended himself over that and denies that it ever happened, but he was not found guilty in a criminal court of law.
So because George said those things and kept insisting that he was found guilty of rape when in fact he wasn't, remember she's making that point that the criminal court never found him guilty of that. Well, Donald Trump decided he was going to sue because, here, I'm just going to say, I'm going to take it a step further. Not only was it libel, but it actually was, again, another form of election interference. I mean, ABC News has a pretty big platform with that weekend show that they do. And here's the guy who's head of it all, right? The main anchor coming out and saying that he was found guilty of rape when he wasn't. That seems to me to be pretty egregious. And how is it fair, right? Oh, you say, just because he's a public person, we can say these things about him? I mean, they said all kinds of things about him. I think if he actually really wanted to start suing, he could sue a few more people along the way because of this.
Of course, Trump is a Nazi time again.
Let's deal with Hitler, okay?
I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that. I mean, that is Mussolini, Hitler-like language.
Trump's affinity for Hitler was always covered under an umbrella of his stupidity.
Echoing Hitler's words.
Listen to this.
Well, Hitler was duly elected.
That's right. Echoing the hateful rhetoric of Adolf Hitler.
It echoes Hitler.
That's the kind of language Hitler used in Mein Kampf.
About vermin and Hitler and Mussolini.
That's a horrifying clip. That's a fascist clip.
Just going full on.
So I'm just saying, I think ABC got off a little bit easy. Just a little bit easy, only having to pay $15 million. You know, this could have gone forward and turned into something much more. I think they were nervous about that, right? Because then there would have been a discovery process and some emails would have come out and maybe they would have looked even worse. So they're putting the money towards the Trump library. That's going to be a heck of a library. If he were to go out there and actually go after everyone, everybody's like, oh, he can't do that. He can't do that. That's threatening to the media. So again, what happens? Like, you become a public person and suddenly you are devoid of any, need for any responsibility from a journalist organization? That's unbelievable to me. Like, you can just go and say anything about anyone because they're a public person? I don't think so. That's not how I run my show. Absolutely not. Simone Sanders obviously runs her program a little bit differently. Now, I didn't even know who she was. She's some other woman they have there with a very liberal bent on MSNBC. But she came out and she repeated the same allegations. And I'm just saying, I'm thinking he gets another $15 million from the Suffering Network. If they've got it there at MSNBC, maybe this will be the final nail in their coffin and Elon really can come to the rescue. Here's Simone.
The press is in a difficult position. Everyone understands that. That doesn't change the obligation to be straightforward and objective when it comes to Donald Trump.
I would just say, this feels like it has a real chilling effect. Shout out to the Standards Department. Okay, Standards is always making sure that we are keeping the bar high and substantive and accurate. But what George Stephanopolus said in that interview, it seems to hold up with what the judge said after the fact. And now his news organization and himself, George Stephanopolus himself, is paying $1 million of his own money to the lawyers, and ABC at $15 million. It's insane.
Yeah, well, it's not that insane because you just can't actually print lies or spout lies. But they're all flipping out. Let me go over to CNN for a moment. They get a guy there that they're interviewing that used to be on the network but was fired from the network, clearly has his own biases. Actually, both of these guys, if you look at them, one is Acosta, and he was always getting into it, right, in those press conferences with Donald Trump. And then the other is either, what does Hannity call him? Like Potato Head, Mr. Potato Head, either that or Humpty Dumpty, I can't remember. But take a peek at this reaction.
Well, and there are a lot of different ways to talk about this, Brian. Donald Trump has said a lot of things about people, places, you name it, that have been false and so on. And it just strikes me as a bit rich that, he's going to be the recipient, or his presidential foundation is going to be a recipient of this kind of large settlement. And I have to ask you whether or not you think there's just going to be a chilling effect on the news industry just as he is coming into office because of this. I suppose it's almost a rhetorical question because the answer is yes.
Chilling effect? Did you hear the Hitler soundbite I just played for you? Maybe it would be a little bit good if there would be some responsibility among these members of the media. I think the whole world would welcome that right about now.
The answer is yes. Media lawyers are worried about this. They're preparing for it. They are preparing their newsrooms for it with the expectation of more lawsuits, more leak investigations, more subpoenas in the months and years to come. There's a great AP story about this morning saying there's a balancing act right now for the press between being fearful and just being prepared. Doing our jobs, but being aware of the climate. And maybe that's partly what ABC was doing here. ABC, as a source there, said to me, we needed this problem to go away. They were trying to explain the payment that way. But now, as you said, $15 million for Trump's future museum. I imagine there will be an ABC News Hall of Fake News. There will be some attempt to troll as a result of this. And more seriously, we are in a climate where more of this kind of litigation is expected. And of course, it's not just Trump suing news outlets. Trump himself is facing multiple defamation lawsuits. So, this turns in multiple directions, right? And what some see as accountability for mistakes on live television, others see as currying favor, a settlement.
See, I don't think it was a mistake. He repeated it several times. And this is despite the fact that Nancy Mace was like, no, he was never actually found guilty of rape by the criminal court. And yet, George Stephanopolus kept going back to it and back to it and back to it. So yeah, there should be some accountability.